Greetings everyone and welcome to another edition of BlastCast. Of course, I am Jairus, and with me as always is my bastion of common sense, Lightning Dragon.
We're gonna have to change it to Droughtcast because there's been nothing for like the last 2-3 weeks.
Oh, I know. When you get towards CitizenCon, they like trickle out the information. Like where you normally have your around the verse where you can cover 5 or 6, 7 topics. You know, they're like, nope. Here's one thing, and that's all we're giving you.
We fixed more bugs.
That's true.
That's great.
That's true. The production updates. So that was actually a good one, though. They went from 76 total bugs down to 26. So that's a huge kick in the crotch to the old bug department. If you were watching the video on that, it looks like Aaron Roberts kind of just said, "Hey, let's not worry about these. Let's just take care of these." And I think they just basically said, you know, we're not gonna worry about these certain issues, or we're gonna focus on this other areas, and just pull them out of the mix because. We went from, we actually gained a blocker. We went from 10 blockers to 11. Criticals went from 50 to 10. High went from 14 to 5, and there's no moderates at all. It went from 2 to 0. So yeah, I mean, overall, this was a really, really good amount of advancement. And if this keeps up, hey, Evocati in a week or two, cross your fingers, cross your fingers.
Nope, not allowed.
Yeah, I'll probably get some, like, oh, we discovered 20 more bugs this week or something. That's we'll find out.
No, they'll just release it to the live. What? No, Evocati. Oh, wait, we've changed the flight model again. It's even worse.
Released a live, that'd be fine, because then everyone can play it. You know, whatever we want to do.
Now we have IM mode in our IM modes.
Exactly, double IM modes. All right, so the big thing about Around the Verse this week was, of course, the triumphant return for what parts were there of Tony Z. He's actually one of my favorite developer to listen to about anything technical because his passion is apparent, and he's just reminds me of an uncle I had. It was a historian. He could just get into the subject and dig into it for hours and make even a subject which would normally be boring very, very interesting. What they were talking about was the dynamic system that they're going to have for missions and how their intent is to prevent you from experiencing the same things over and over and over, which is great. But we're going to talk about a couple games that we played that have tried somewhat similar, obviously not exact, but those kind of things, and where their shortfalls have come from. The first thing I'd like to talk about is for those of you familiar with the game, but Guild Wars 2, they tried to do kind of an open world. As you wandered around, the missions in the world just kind of happened around you.
Story exploded.
Yeah. And, you know, depending upon success or failure would set the next chain of the missions in motion. And there was some variation, but the point is that, you know, eventually, when you first get there, it's fresh. You know, you don't know what's going to happen. You go to the next part. But over a certain amount of time, you start to recognize that it's a very, very set pattern, and you can predict what the next thing is going to be based upon what happened in the previous one. And so it's initially speaking, it has a lot of freshness. After a few weeks of playing, not so much.
You just start ignoring it because it's like, I'd rather finish this area.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just one of those things that that's a situation where they tried something really new and innovative, but where they fell short, I feel, is that they had a good start, but they didn't iterate on it. They could have actually expanded that concept maybe more, and over time...
Another thing they could have done, because overall, most of it was fine, but it was just too limited. Like, you had like 2, maybe 3 at the most branches, and that was it. But if they made it where there was, you know, more fail states, or made it so like, oh, well, you know, the villain got away, but, you know, he's in this other area. So if you wanted to continue that mission, you had to, like, go somewhere else. And
right, like a failure in a certain area would boost up the difficulty in another area. Like, eventually, like, the enemies could almost take over the entire map, like hardcore.
Yeah, I mean, it needed a step or 2 further, but overall it wasn't a bad idea. It was just kind of like you had this good idea and you just kind of, you know, floundered it or whatever. Yeah,
you didn't take it to what it could have been. And of course, you know, we've got another game that we play, and once again bring up something that will be a sore point, Elite Dangerous. Basically, they try to do some sort of dynamic stuff, but what they do is mostly kind of you go into a node. It could be like maybe there's a ship that's blown up, maybe, and you can salvage some parts. Maybe there's some cargo that you can get, even though it's for some reason it's illegal. Maybe it's combat. Maybe you got a mission at a terminal and someone calls you, says, hey, if you fly it over here, we'll pay you more if you want to do that instead. Or some guy contacts you and say, hey, don't sell it to him, sell it to me, and then I'll do this for you.
And I'll give you 50 more credits. Whoa.
Yeah, and you lose all this reputation. So
yeah, so you're like, wait, what?
Yeah, they tried to iterate on that a little bit, but I never found that doing any of the alternate stuff was worthwhile. Like, I'll pay you 10,000 credits to do another 20 jumps. I'm like,
nope.
No, not happening, buddy. So I'm going to take it to the station that's exactly 2 minutes that way, So yeah, it's one of those things that Elite Dangerous kind of tried to do it, and they've really kind of dropped the ball on it. It's nice to see them trying some variation, but it really just kind of fell flat. So when we talk about what Star Citizen is trying to do, I keep those games in mind because they can actually fall flat in the same regards. But when I saw them when they were showing all the branches and stuff, and as the game iterates, one of the things they can do to keep it fresh is to keep adding new variations. Like when new systems or system mechanics are brought in, it could take into account maybe the type of ship you have. Like, oh, he's in an exploration ship. Maybe we'll make scanning for the location of the next part of this mission, as part of it. So if it takes in consideration what you're flying, or if they come up with new kinds of missions, they can just go ahead and drop them into the branch trees and kind of go from there. And then basically have branches depending upon failure or success, where you can fail a section but still overall complete the mission. I'd like to see those kind of branches, but the big part is continual iteration, continually adding on to the system, and making sure that it doesn't become stale. Because as Tony Z said, the idea is that nobody, no matter how long you play, they don't want them to experience the exact same mission twice. And I respect that. That's going to take a lot of work, though, and it's going to take a lot of feedback from the players. And I feel that this is really important, for exploration. If you want to have that Star Trek 5-year space experience, and you're out there in your Carrack or something, you don't want to have to go to a terminal all the time to pick up a mission or make income. The ability to be out there in the middle of space and just have something happen, and you don't have to do it, but you can be out there and stumble across something that leads to a very interesting story. That's important. That keeps it fresh. That keeps those players that are out in deep space involved in the game.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to say, like, if you're in a cargo running ship and you logged off at a station, when you log back on, you go up to the thing and say, what kind of cargo missions do you have? And that's what you're doing. You're basically running cargo from point to point. Or, I'm in a small fighter, so you don't have the range to just go out there and explore. So the only downside that this can really have is if they make one mission where it has the exact same start every single time, but it's got like 2 splits right away. You can go this way, you can go that way, then those ones have like 5 splits. I mean, if they make it this huge like tree of mess, what you're gonna have is just like a tree. You have a good solid foundation, but eventually you get all these little twigs at the end, and you're just kind of like, I just want this mission to end. So they need to make it, like you were saying, where you have like not fail states, but like done states, where like if you get a mission like, oh hey, we want you to go, let's say you pick the mission up, okay, just for an example, and you pick the mission up and you go out to this area and you're scanning it, and you're like, okay, well, you can either do a secondary scan or be like, okay, that's good enough, so you get like a partial payment, or you continue to scan up to the point where, like, I think we've mentioned this before, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, and then you scan until like maybe there's pirates, and you're like, okay, well, I don't want to fight pirates, so you basically, instead of like continuing that mission, like, oh, well, there's pirates, you basically just report that back, boom, it generates another mission. So anybody in space can now be like, oh, we've got, a report of pirates in this area. So if they kind of have like a radio kind of broadcast thing, so you don't have to keep going back to like mission hubs or anything, that would also help a lot, rather than just like if you fly into an asteroid field or something and you're scanning down rocks and you find a transponder and then that leads to a mission chain. I mean, you could do it multiple ways.
Another reason this is kind of important is because by giving players the option to pick up dynamic missions out in space, it's going to prevent everyone from getting jammed up on hubs, whether it's those truck stops or major planets. A lot of times in these kind of games, you end up with systems or stations in particular that everyone kind of piles into. And keeping everybody from being stacked on top of each other, I think, will also be good for the health of the game, as far as maybe net code, frame rate, latency, those kind of things. So it's one of those things that I see as being very, very positive. And the tricky part of this is iteration. They're really going to have to make sure that they stay on top of it. You know, and with keeping everyone out of the central hubs, or from creating a central hub, will make the world feel more alive. And you know, I've already expressed a lot of concerns I have for things like truck stops, where you have the open space parking as being potential areas where someone could just troll the crap out. Yes, I know they're going to have reputation systems and stuff like that, but I hate the idea of parking my ship just on an open flatbed that everyone's going to go visit, because I just see some guy having a bad day.
Trolls don't care about reputation.
No, they don't. They're going to take their Aurora and fly it right into your Starfarer, and they don't give a crap. And it's just one of those things that...
And they'll get their ship back in a couple hours, maybe, you know, minutes, where your Starfarer could be a couple days away from being replaced.
Exactly. So it's one of those things that, for me, generally speaking, I'd rather avoid a lot of the high population center hubs.
It'll also, taking away the you know, mission hub kind of thing, it'll make it less MMO-ish. I mean, raise your hand, you know, if you've played an MMO where everyone's piled around a quest giver trying to get quests.
Yeah, that's true. Or piled in the quest giver so you can't click on them.
Yeah, there's that too.
Yeah, that's always fun. So yeah, basically, you know, it comes down to they're going to have to stay on top of this. They're going to have to keep adding to it, because, you know, I said after the first year, I mean, you play the game for a year, you may basically see everything that they come out with in its release version. So they're going to have to keep making sure that, you know, they have different starting points. Maybe they can use existing parts of chains that are later as starting points and iterate off of them. Kind of create these weird kind of loops where things can start here and end back in a different area. But it's going to take a lot of work. But as long as they consider all this and don't just have the variations be just like, okay, this is the ship you find, or this is how many NPCs you find, or the faction you find. If they get more iterative than that, it should be fine. So basically, yeah, I think this is a really good episode. A little long-winded, you know, but I always like Tony Z, so give it a watch if you haven't. And you know, we'll go ahead and see what your thoughts are down below. What you think about the mission systems, what your concerns are, what you've experienced in other games that you like or don't like. And we will catch you next time on the BlastCast.
Also, Retaliator.
Retaliator. Bye.